Hi, folks. Welcome to Hat Friday with the I Write Radio boys. I've got Jimmy Hutton, Stuart Lockhead, and I'm Norrie Stewart. I think we've got to go with Trump to begin with, and then we'll maybe move on to the presser, which was a little bit kind of huggy-feely today. Donald Trump, should we pay for his staff at his golf clubs after they've been bathed in Dettol? Jimmy?
There's every chance that Donald knows better than everybody, mate. Because let's be honest, there was us all thinking that he wasn't much an expert on domestic policy, and it turns out he didn't even know what he was talking about there because he was concentrating on domestos policy. Man's an arse, and he showed that this morning.
I did notice that when the question was put to Nicola, she couldn't resist a wee bit of a glare.
It was a nice wee slap down, wasn't it? What was it? She said we really shouldn't comment on stuff we've half heard and completely misunderstood. That's Donald's life, though, isn't it?
Stuart.
Well, she got. You're right. I mean, it's interesting. We're straight into the presser. Yes, she was asked twice about it. Said one of the hyena press. Actually, there weren't too many there today. They did try to get her trapped into things, but yeah, they definitely wanted Nicola Sturgeon to say something that they could use as a headline tomorrow. But Nicola's far too good for them for that. But she took the opportunity to have a go.
They'll twist it. I mean, the Times has been particularly good using their headlines to infer she said things she didn't over the last few days. But I'm looking forward to Trump replacing all the nuclear warheads on his missiles with Dettol bombs.
Oh, careful. That's another story we should cover. The nuclear submarine captain that had a rave on the dock.
Oh, I missed this one. Give me the details.
I'm on his side, right?
So am I.
This is the captain and crew. They've been cruising around wherever they go secretly under the sea. But as far as I know, he didn't have nuclear missiles because otherwise they'd been up at Fazlin. Anyway, they got called back to port because of everything's locked down. And when they got there, they were told they were quarantined. Couldn't leave the submarine. Couldn't go home to their families and that. So they had a barbecue on the dock with some rave music and got disciplined. Not right, Jimmy?
Yeah, well, certainly. People are calling them, they're saying that the behaviour was somewhat ill-disciplined, and I'm like, hold it. These guys have just done 3 months or 6 months, depending on how long their tour was, under the sea together. They didn't need to self-isolate. There's no COVID on the boat, and they weren't mixing with anybody that wasn't on the boat. So I didn't see a problem with them getting a deck suit, getting a few kegs out, and getting blutered whilst listening to some quality tunes. I have no issue whatsoever with that. And if anybody in the Admiralty does, I would suggest that person is due for retirement.
You can guess who'll get scalped, though.
Aye, it's not going to be they'll blame the captain of the boat because that seems to be the de rigueur behaviour these days, like that boy for the USS Theodore Roosevelt. It was all his fault.
No, it was all his fault.
I'm going to presume, never having been on a nuclear submarine, that there is simply no way you can maintain 2 meter distancing or self-isolate.
You couldn't maintain 20 millimeter self-isolation distances at times, sorry.
I mean, I do remember at one time on submarines, the guys hot-bedded. As shift changed, they got into the same bunk. I don't know if it still applies, but
you need a toffee hammer for your sheets, eh?
Did they go into the middle of Glasgow for the rave, or did they do it on the end of a pier somewhere?
It was on the end of a pier, mate. It was the dockside at Portsmouth or Southampton, whichever one it was.
Madness.
I know they were being quarantined in the dock once they came ashore. They weren't allowed to go and spend time with their families. So,
crazy.
So they had a barbecue on the dock.
More power to the LB. I think people should be sending them some nice quality tunes and kegs so that they can party again tonight.
Anyway, on the subject of Trump, I would like to suggest Jackson Carlaw is becoming more Trump-esque. He's getting really nervous now that Scotland's going to differentiate itself from the Union in some way over the COVID-19 epidemic. And he's basically insisting that everybody comes out of lockdown at the same time. If there's absolute, complete and certain proof that one of the countries of the UK should differentiate coming out of lockdown from the other parts, is that going to be good enough for Jackson Carlaw, for one of the countries of the Union, to come out later? Or is is any lives lost just to be laid at the door of the wonderful Union?
I didn't really know why people are bothering to ask Jackson his opinion. I think he's just bumping his gums and spouting because nobody is asking him. So he desperately has to phone up a friendly journalist and say something. The reality is, should Northern Ireland, for example, choose to come out of lockdown in step with what happens south of the border, that would be far more sensible than doing it in step with Scotland, England, or Wales.
Arlene Foster has already come out and said, Arlene Foster, the granny of all unionists, has come out and said there could be differences.
Well, I've been surprised that Nicola Sturgeon didn't bring that up. She repeated when she was asked a question just now by Libby Brooks of The Guardian about keeping in lockstep with Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland, and apparently Mark Hancock, what's his first name?
Matt Hancock.
Matt Hancock had said, oh, no, they've got to all come out at the same time. And I, at the time that she was answering that question today, I was thinking, surely she could, but she's gone on about, oh, a virus doesn't respect borders. Well, obviously, it might just respect the Irish Sea. Why don't she say it? It's an obvious thing. It makes sense for Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland to do the same thing. I've been reading stuff, by the way, from people in Ireland saying that it's absolutely farcical. If you're in the south of Ireland, you can get tested left, right, and centre for everything. Even if your auntie's just been visiting the butcher that might have had it. But as soon as you cross the border back into Derry City, or London Derry, if you insist, and if you live there, you won't get tested. Actually, they're sending testing people across the border to Northern Ireland to test people if they're part of a testing infected circle.
I think anything that comes out of Matt Hancock's mouth these days has to be taken with a massive pinch of salt. I mean, his nonsense yesterday where they were talking about 100,000 tests and then, but we're going to let everybody out, all the key workers can start, they can phone up and they can book an appointment. You can't test 25,000 people now, mate. And the minute they opened their system this morning, it collapsed. So booking an appointment is a joke. That's just a sop to make people think that testing is actually going on. If you actually get through and book an appointment, when's it going to be? July.
What the problem's going to be getting people who are qualified to do the testing to the people that need testing. That was always going to be the problem. It's the infrastructure.
They've sorted that. They've got the British Army involved. The British Army that can't find their arse with two hands and an assistant half the time. And other than being good at driving wagons, there's no British, I wouldn't say no. What, how big's the medical corps? About 1,500, 2,000? They might be qualified to do tests. And they're talking about the army organising pop-ups. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be the problem. The problem is going to be that there are places they can't get people to do the testing. So the testing is a rod for their own backs.
Okay, so I mean, it is. Look, think about it this way. There are more and more articles across the press. Times, obviously, more in the Guardian but even in the Telegraph and pro-government UK government papers, there are an awful lot more arguments discussing about who of the current cabinet that are currently playing a sort of a dance of the podiums, who's going to be the last person left standing at the podium. In other words, they're talking about who's going to get the boot as soon as Boris comes back. Who's going to get the blame?
I think it's pretty obvious. And
first unit the door's Matt Hancock. I mean, I didn't care why we didn't just start calling him the fall guy now, because that's clearly what. I mean, the brief against him. The minute he came off that podium last night, they were briefing against what he'd said.
I was going to say the hint's in the name. Matt, as in doormat. He's on the way out.
That's why I was saying yesterday, maybe he'll see it over the weekend and have the balls to resign, because at least that way he'll get to make a nice speech in Parliament, slating Boris, and maybe tell us the truth about just how many fingers Dominic Cummings is using to work these people at the podium.
Did you see that Dominic Cummings' wife has apparently been quoted as saying he's been ill for 10 days with coronavirus?
No, I didn't. Didn't you know he had a wife? I thought he was a puppet.
Well, mate, if she's married to Dominic Cummings, I wouldn't believe a word that comes out her mouth.
Well, that popped up on Twitter. How genuine it is, I don't know. I would expect to see it being quoted by one of our wonderful press legionnaires.
Can he bring legionnaires into it? Donald Trump will be straight back on again saying that Domestos worked for that and all.
There's one. Can I just bring in one thing I noticed with the presser? Because I can tell by Norrie's itching a bit there to move on. There was very few journalists turned up today compared to yesterday. They were all expectable. We discussed it yesterday. There was hardly any journalists turned up for the presser today. And what I noticed was that the most savage critics of the SNP government were left to last. So we had the Scotsman, the Herald, and the Record. And the Record, I don't know who briefed the Record journal.
They had another stupid question, didn't they?
It was so much rubbish. It made no sense. And the First Minister, Skelter, rotten. She's very good at it.
What was the question?
Oh, no, that is irrelevant. That was the problem, that nobody could understand the question.
Was this the question about the agency nurse?
Bank workers and mothball clinics, and it went on and on and on. It took about 5 minutes to ask. Who's going to answer a question like that? The First Minister got straight in there, scalped her arse and told her, send me the details and don't expect me to answer a question like that. She didn't call her stupid, but she did.
Well, you've got to remember that for the press, it was almost impossible this morning, because Nicola had a universally good press last night and this morning throughout the UK. And that really leaves the Scottish press pack with nowhere to go, because every day they want to attack her. So their superiors, the ones working down in London, the ones who actually write leaders for the papers rather than page 16 articles or what have you, they'd given her a solid, 7.5, 8.5 out of 10 for her performance yesterday. So the Scottish press were just left twiddling their thumbs going, where do we go? What do we go with here?
The Scottish press have got another story. The Craig Murray story.
Oh, they're no.
Craig Murray having been arrested, charged with bringing the court into contempt for, I'm going to presume it was, what is it they called it? Jigsaw recognition of one of the accusers in the Alex Salmond case.
Well, so none of the other journalists did the same.
Well, Danny Garvelli, in her article, I think mentioned the position that one of them held.
Yeah,
so
I was
rocket science to find them.
You know, I was able to identify who was involved from her article. I couldn't figure out anything from Craig Murray, but I'm not a lawyer.
Well, I thought Craig Murray did go close to the bone on one of them. However, I'd be interested to know who pushed for him to be charged.
Well, more interestingly, I think Danny's article was a lot closer to the bone. And one of the journalists in the courthouse actually tweeted someone's name. Do you remember that?
No, I can't remember that, mate.
The name was was tweeted accidentally. He withdrew the tweet very quickly and stopped tweeting. Started writing articles after the day's session was over.
I think we're going to have
So
to wait.
if none of them get pulled,
I think we're going to have to wait for more information. I thought it was shocking. It was just like a 2-line bit of news. What annoyed me was that even the national newspaper headlined "Blogger Charged." I mean, he's got more listeners and readers than the average so-called Scottish journalist.
Mm-hmm.
I
And they
think
use the word blogger. They mean it to be an insult.
I do think that not calling him, okay, don't call him a journalist, but you have to call him a writer.
Right. And an ex-diplomat. There's a title for you. Can you lose for the rest of your life?
Interestingly, I don't know if you remember the hoo-ha when he went for selection to stand in 2015. When was the general election after the referendum?
15.
Was 15.
Hmm.
And he didn't get through the SNP process. I was told at the time by somebody who did that he was considered too much of a loose cannon.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a loose cannon, let's be honest.
But it'll be interesting to see if anybody brings up the fact that he he went for selection without mentioning he was rejected, because that's beginning to really bug me.
You're losing me here, Nori.
Well,
Expand a little.
There's so many articles written now where what's said about the SNP is the smear is by omission. So they say what they say, but they don't say it all when they write these articles. With Craig Murray, as I say, he didn't get through the process because basically he's Craig Murray. He couldn't be trusted to toe the party line, I think, is what we can infer.
If this was the USA, ex-ambassador Craig Murray would be, they would call him ambassador, still call him. Ex-ambassadors never lose their title in America.
Was he actually an ambassador?
Yes, he was the ambassador in Kyrgyzstan, or Uzbekistan,
right.
sorry.
Uzbekistan, I think.
Aye, but the fact that the Americans call everybody Mr. President when they're no longer president, or Mr. Ambassador whether they're no longer ambassador, just marks Americans out as diddies, in my opinion.
Well, fair enough. I'm trying to give a little bit more respect than the press, even the national, to that, because I know what they mean. I mean, if you want me to go on, I'll go on about giving an award to Paul Hutchin.
Surely the point here is who pushed for him to be charged. The judge clearly never thought much of it. She bloody asked him to leave the court and told him he couldn't come back in again because the prosecution didn't want him in there. But the judge clearly never thought anything of it, or he would have been charged.
The prosecution pushed for that.
Aye, and well, who's the prosecution got to? Is it the Lord Advocate? Is it the Crown Agent? We need to know who's pushing for Craig Murray to have been charged of this, because this is a political move, and whoever's behind it is behind it.
Well, the police do the charging, etc.
No.
They do the arrest.
The decision comes to the Crown Office.
Yeah, but
that's what I'm asking.
And he has been charged. Does this go? How does it work again? The police can charge you, then it goes to the Crown Office. They decide whether to prosecute.
Well, can I just suggest?
If that was going to happen, it would have happened at the time of the case, Norrie.
All right, but can I just suggest that we need that news only came out today, and we really need to wait a couple of days to find out a bit more information. There's one or two people I could name that might just dig out information. Pete Warrior, Wings, other people that might just dig out some real hardcore information.
And of course, we haven't mentioned the fact that Wings is back in court with his appeal.
As the case may be,
they did a virtual court case a couple of days ago, so they're waiting on a judgment from 3 judges.
Yeah, well, again, we're waiting for kind of information. That's very thin on the ground. There's a headline and not much else, isn't there?
Well, it's done and dusted. They both sides have made their case. It's now up to 3 judges.
Mm,
So
fair
it's
enough.
interesting. Anybody spot anything else today worth bringing up?
I thought it was worthwhile bringing up Shona Craven's article in the National. I've never referenced her before. I do read what she's got to say, but I thought it was interesting of what she had to say. Basically, and she did it very well. It's not a long article. I can recommend it. She's basically saying there's the establishment, the Tories in particular, they like to say, don't make politics out of this crisis. It's far too important to make politics out of it. And let's be honest, Keir Starmer is licking something that he shouldn't be, and following that line. He's not, and yet Shona Craven makes the case that this is far too important to not discuss it, for it not to be challenged as a political issue. This crisis, people are dying because of the bad behavior of people. And I just think I can recommend people reading it. Some would argue the moral duty to challenge them increases during a crisis, especially amid legitimate concerns that the right-wing government is putting different values on different kinds of human lives. So whose life was looked after? Oh, it was Boris Johnson and Prince Charles. But the cleaner, didn't it? The Royal Infirmary was ignored.
I think that this is a difficult one because it's very easy for governments in situations like this, all governments in situations like this, to push aside criticism due to the pressure of the crisis. I'm not prepared to answer that question because we don't have all the details, Anything bad, as we know, will be pushed down the line. It will go in front of an inquiry that will take, you know, probably to the end of our lives to report.
But no, this issue is it's about us. We're discussing it from a political point of view. We're challenging it from a political point of view.
Yeah, the point
Shona Craven is defending what we're doing.
The point I'm making here, Stuart, is it's too easy for avoidance. I mean, for instance, Newsnight cannot get a government minister to come on to answer questions because they'll be asked hard questions by Newsnight. You know, they're happy to go on to just about everything else where they'll, you know, it'll be soft pedaling.
Right, they'll go on Good Morning Britain every day and take a slight tone off Piers Morgan. But at the end of the day, Piers Morgan, when he asked them really serious stuff, the Newsnight would, like, you done this, you said this, should you resign? Because what you said there has been completely disproved by what you say there. So should you resign? Are you a liar? Or do you just think people are going to forget? Because that's what they do. I mean, Matt Hancock's the world's worst. He just opens his mouth and lets his belly rumble about anything. Whether it's factual or not, he just says it.
Look, it's widely accepted that the only serious opposition at a UK level to this government and the way it's handling this crisis is Piers fucking Morgan. Now
I don't think anybody thinks that, Stuart. I don't think anybody thinks he's opposition.
That's a terrible indictment on the state of the press in this country.
I don't agree with you on that.
But who else is asking the serious questions?
Well, I don't think it's fair to say that given the opportunity, other people wouldn't ask the question. What this government has done is avoid getting themselves in front of the people that will ask the difficult questions.
Well, let's rewind us slightly. Apparently, there's been a lot of people saying Keir Starmer had a wonderful performance at PMQs the other day. I thought he sat on a cushion and just thought, I'll not say very much.
See, I think you're completely wrong. I think you went into that hoping that he would be bad and that you'd made your mind up before he actually spoke. I thought he asked a couple of good questions. He made Dominic Raab look like an idiot, which isn't difficult because Dominic Raab is an idiot. But I would wonder, what would you have him ask? What would you have him ask that he didn't ask on Wednesday?
We covered this the other day. He did not challenge when the question he asked was refused, was just batted away by Dominic Raab. He didn't say, "You didn't answer my question," and he had 6 questions.
Stuart, nobody ever does. Every time we've covered FMQs or PMQs, you want them to ask the same question time and time again. Nobody ever does that. You say that every week about Ian, what's his face?
Ian
The chubby
Blackford.
chap for Sky.
Ian Blackford.
Well,
You
he's
can't
only got
ask the
2
same
questions.
question. You can't ask the same question twice. You just make yourself look daft.
He's only got 2 questions, Ian Blackford.
I know, but you can't
I
ask the
do-
same one twice.
I don't understand why you're defending Keir Starmer, Jimmy. Honestly.
He's not.
I think Keir Starmer didn't do too bad, given it was the first time they've ever done PMQs that way. He wasn't facing the Prime Minister, and let's be honest, Dominic Raab never engaged with any question until the last one, when he knew that Keir Starmer couldn't come back at him, and then he started being all snidey.
Yeah, all right. I think the trouble is that Keir Starmer is following Jeremy Corbyn, who was 4 or 5 years of insipid questioning as well. It's been a long time since the Labour Party had a leader of the opposition that really stuck it to the Tories.
Corbyn had a couple of good ones, but only a couple out of the years he was at that dispatch box. Keir Starmer is not going to be a blood and fire. He's going to be a details man. Was I impressed with what I saw? Not particularly. I think Jimmy's right. I think the content was good, incisive, but the delivery wasn't. And you need both. You need to be able to deliver. You need that little twist in the tail.
I think, Norrie, the problem was that every Labour supporter, every Labour media commentator, every Labour Twitterati, they were already sitting with their comments ready to go about how forensic he was, how brilliant he'd been.
Aye.
And he wasn't. He was just average. And their comments all hit Twitter, their comments all hit Facebook and what have you. And we all went, what a pile of shit they're talking. But then their Labour supporters have been talking nonsense for years. I mean, that wee Owen Jones, he was that far up there, you could barely see his feet. I'm amazed that Keir Starmer could sit down.
I do think he'll grow into it, but I don't think he'll ever be Tony Blair. He's never going to be incisive. Tony Blair was good on his feet. You know, in fact, Tony Blair's deputy was good on his feet as well. What's his name that punched the guy that attacked him?
John Prescott.
Prescott.
Aye, Prescott was good. Harriet Harman was quite good as well. They had a few back in the day that were decent. It's unfortunate that you've had Ed Miliband, who was crap. You've had Jeremy, who was mostly crap. The unfortunate thing is these days, make questions to the Prime Minister is almost worthless. It's particularly when they've got that many Tories sitting behind them baying. It's going to be rank till we get Parliament back, and then when we get Parliament back, it'll be rank again.
Yeah, you're going to need a bit of fire. You need a bit of fire in your belly when it comes to it, and that's difficult. You know, Nicola can be incredibly boring.
She takes way too long. It's dull as ditch water. And as I say, when we watched Jackson Carlo gone to the STV studios to actually put a question to the First Minister that she wasn't going to answer because she wasn't there, that shows you how little respect the opposition have for First Minister's questions in Holyrood.
And I mean, as we say often, one of the reasons she drags on answers is to make sure she covers all the bases and doesn't leave any chinks in her armour.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, though, Norrie, just on a wee positive note, wasn't it nice to note at the presser the day that another plane load of stuff landed at Prestwick this morning? Another 10 million masks, another 100,000 testing kits.
And at some factory in Annan in the south of Scotland is producing 1 million visors this year.
Mm-hmm. Aye, it was cracking. Some really positive, good news came out of that presser today, which I very much doubt will be all over the front page of the Daily Record or the Scottish Sun
Well,
tomorrow morning.
we nearly missed it ourselves.
Well, that's getting ahead of the curve stuff, isn't it? That's
Mhm.
basically, right, Jackson, let's see your next tweet about some guy producing 4 masks in his shed every day.
Well, it's also a wee
Claiming that
slap
the
to
government
Matt
won't
Hancock
buy it
when he-
off him.
Matt Hancock said this morning that Nicola Sturgeon hadn't done anything untoward and hadn't done anything out of the ordinary that wasn't being done by the 3 other governments in the UK. Well, Ken, what, Matt? She's landed 2 plane loads when you've not managed to get half a plane load for Turkey after going on about it for the whole of last weekend.
I was a little bit concerned about the announcement of a 560,000 litres of hand sanitizer being produced by some chemical company at Grangemouth, Calichem. Well, it's a good idea that we've got it, but my God, I bet they've been well paid for it. I hope it's not that Ineos company, Jim, whatever his name is.
Jim Ratcliffe, no, it's no. But the only worrying thing about that was that they'd used the alcohol for was it Walkers?
Bells.
No,
Was it
Bells.
Bells?
If it Bells, it's not a matter. It's not a matter of worrying, is it? Nobody buys Bells these days.
No.
I wouldn't clean my shoes
It
with
was a
Bells,
funny
mate.
company name. I didn't. Was it Walker Bells or something?
Calichem was the company.
No. The alcohol came from a distillery.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they'd
I mean-
made it in Grangemouth. They make alcohol there. God, they
Our
crack
own
them.
It would
Our own
be alcohol mixed with some sort of.
It's a different kind. It's
Oil.
isopropyl alcohol. You wouldn't want to drink that.
You sound like you know what you're talking about, Stuart.
Yes, I do.
Give me
Okay.
half an hour of a chemistry set, and I bet you I could turn it into something better.
Right, guys, we're beginning to flag. I think.
Yes.
You ready?
Oscar.
We've
Ready
got
to call it a day?
weekenditis.
Jimmy's
Still
the only one with weekenditis.
Aye. Time to go down to the farm. Ooh,
You wait to dig turnips, Jimmy.
Tatties, mate. Tatties do the vodka. Apples do the cider. That's how it goes.
There's a wee orchard just down for that, by the way, at the long
Mhm.
end of the park. That nobody seems to pick the apples off.
You need
Aye,
to tell
well,
the
there'll be-
listeners where that is. It's the same as at the
I'm
end.
telling them nothing because there'll not be any apples.
I had an inquiry about the Bowler's Rest and whether it was actually still open.
No.
No, but Stuart, Ken, what's nasty? Alex left the lights on the timer, and the amount of times I've walked past thinking, shit, the pub's open because the lights are on, and it's just cruel, and I'll really need to speak to him the next time I see him.
Okay, guys, thanks for that. Thanks, Jimmy Hutton. Thanks, Stuart Lockhead. I'm Norris Stewart. Thanks for listening, people. And remember, Domestos is not for ingestion. Cheers for now, folks.